Hello everyone, welcome to Straight Talks F1. The 2024 F1 season is just around the corner. The winter break has been testing our patience for a while, but now we can say F1 is back in conversation because teams have started to tease their car launches. McLaren have already launched their livery, where everyone else is just announcing their dates. So that's a bit of a curveball. But from the future perspective, Formula One has already announced the Spanish GP to move to Madrid in 2026. So there's a bit of a threat on Barcelona. People have suddenly started loving Barcelona, which they hated literally 6 months back. But all in all, F1 is back in conversation. And from that futuristic perspective itself, we are just going to look at the driver market, which is going to be a lot more chaotic this year than it was last year. In 2023, we did not see any driver changes. The grid from last year is the same grid that will take the start in Bahrain, but that may not be the case next season. 2024 and 2025, these 2 years are going to be pivotal for the driver market. Many drivers are running out of contract this season, except for McLaren and Mercedes. No other team have got both their drivers signed up for the next 2 seasons or beyond 2024. So many drivers are going to be on the market looking for options if they are not satisfied with their current team. So that's what we are going to look at in this episode of how this silly season could play out. It could be crazy chaotic. Now, there are all sorts of rumors going on about Carlos Sainz, Charles Leclerc wanting to re-sign at Ferrari. Leclerc has a rumored 5-year deal till the end of 2029. Sainz is also looking for a similar long-term deal, but Ferrari is allegedly not giving him that deal. Reports say that they are only willing to give him a 1 + 1 year contract or a 1 year contract, which is not something Carlos might be looking for at the age of 30. He'll be 30 this year. So it's understandable from Sainz's perspective what he's expecting out of Ferrari. This will be second renewal. He renewed his contract in 22 till the end of 24. So mostly Sainz's seat is going to play a crucial part in this entire silly season. And then comes Red Bull's second seat. That infamous second seat curse, second driver curse, which is still not lifted for Red Bull. Sergio Perez has been struggling awfully, and while Christian Horner has said that they want to retain him, and they have retained him for 24, he has a contract till the end of the season. That does not guarantee his place beyond 24. Red Bull have defended him a lot despite the kind of inconsistent performances he showed last year. And bringing back Daniel Ricciardo is a huge sign that Checo's seat is under threat. Whatever they may say, they may deny that they would not take Ricciardo back. They have indeed given him that AlphaTauri seat. So if Perez continues to struggle this season, it is all to play for Daniel Ricciardo. And even Yuki Tsunoda, if he performs well, we might see Yuki Tsunoda in 2025 at Red Bull. But most likely it may be Ricciardo. He knows the team, he's been in that environment. So he's naturally the prime contender to replace Checo in 25. Now coming to Aston Martin, there are rumors that they may replace Lance Stroll if he continues to struggle relative to Fernando Alonso. Alonso has got an option on his contract. It's a 2-year contract plus an option for 25, which he will mostly take. There's no two ways about it. But he wants to extend beyond that. For 2026, 27, who knows till when is he planning to race? There are no signs of him retiring anytime soon. Now from Lance Stroll's perspective, it seems highly unlikely that Lawrence Stroll, his father, may actually sack him. But I'll still discuss that possibility of how it may play out and who are the likely contenders if someone actually comes in place of Stroll. And beyond that, all the bottom 5 teams, including Alpine, Haas, Sauber, which will be Audi, AlphaTauri and Williams, they are all looking to renew their current drivers, and out of which Alex Albon at Williams is the biggest talking point. He is in red hot form, and there are all sorts of rumors that Albon may go to Ferrari. He's already wished to get back into a top car. Ferrari is not a top car right now, but they surely are a top team and would provide a top race winning car in the future. And Alex Albon's not getting younger. He's hitting his peak form at the age of 27, 28. He wants to be in a top team after all the Red Bull fiasco that's happened in the past. He would ideally want to be in a top team with the kind of form he's showing right now. Williams is not a project that's going to give instant results right now. So Albon has many teams chasing him. Sainz is connected to many other teams. Red Bull is looking for a second driver besides Verstappen, which is an eternal case besides Max Verstappen. So that's what we are going to discuss in this episode. What all could be the possibilities? Which driver could sign for which other team if they are not satisfied with their current outfits? And how the 2024 silly season could play out. So let's start with Red Bull. Max Verstappen is there till 28. That's a done deal. Will Red Bull look at retaining Sergio Perez for another season? Now, there are a lot of sponsorship commercial reasons also to have Checo at Red Bull. His sponsors, his appeal in Mexico, that has a lot of commercial benefit for Red Bull, which also explain why Horner and Marco have given him such a long rope. Now, he doesn't seem like a driver who may have so much financial backing, and he's not that kind of a star driver who will be pulling strings financially and commercially. But that's the case. The only Mexican driver on the grid, and Mexico is a crucial market. And for Red Bull, from the team perspective, as long as he's not beating Verstappen and there's no inter-team tussle, they don't mind Checo being half a second off the pace in qualifying of Max. They don't mind if Checo finishes 30 seconds off the road. Just when McLaren, Mercedes, Ferrari, Aston Martin, these teams come closer and then Checo is not finishing second because he's finishing 30 seconds beyond, and that puts him outside the top 5 consistently, that is when Red Bull will look, okay, we need a better driver than Checo. Because last season gave a very grim picture. Perez scoring almost half the points of what Max scored. Yes, they can say the Red Bull was suited to Verstappen, he drove it better, he understood it better, but Perez has the same team, he has the same resources. It's just perhaps that Verstappen is much more talented, there's no doubt about it, and Daniel Ricciardo has been the only driver who's given Max some challenge. Even when he was in his formative years, only Ricciardo is someone challenged Max Verstappen to some extent. If he does well in AlphaTauri this season, Red Bull may actually think, why not give him that fairy tale ending he wishes for? So Ricciardo's performance at AlphaTauri will play a crucial factor in this entire fiasco at Red Bull, that will they replace Checo or not. And besides Ricciardo, there is Yuki Tsunoda. There is an outside possibility he may get that seat if he performs well. He improved a lot last season, but has he improved enough to match up to Max Verstappen? That's unlikely. And Red Bull feeling to give a young Yuki Tsunoda who's just 23, he will turn 24 this season, a seat beside Verstappen who is in impeccable form. Everyone knows what happened to Pierre Gasly. Everyone knows what happened to Alex Albon. So there is a high chance Tsunoda may just get obliterated against Verstappen. And Red Bull won't want that. They would ideally want a driver who does well, who doesn't get flustered against Verstappen. And Checo has been that driver in patches. If he doesn't make the mistakes he has been doing, if he's consistent enough, he's been a very good second driver. Just that he's lacked that consistency, and last season the recency bias sways a lot of opinions against him. Except from a performance and consistency perspective, Red Bull have little reason to replace Checo. Of course, they have a lot of reasons to get Daniel Ricciardo in, get a better driver in. But what is the possibility of Red Bull choosing anyone besides Ricciardo or Tsunoda? Now, there have been rumors about Lando Norris being an option, but he has got no exit clause at McLaren and he wants to stay there. Lando Norris is in no mood to switch from McLaren to anywhere else unless they again start to struggle badly. And as things stand from contractual perspective, Red Bull will have to break the bank to onboard Lando Norris. Zach Brown has clearly mentioned there is no exit clause based on performance or anything else in Lando Norris's contract. Ideally for Norris and his betterment, he would want to have some sort of exit clause there. But yeah, that's about Norris. Red Bull will have to break the bank if they want Lando in there. And another interesting possibility is Carlos Sainz. if those negotiations falter at Ferrari? He's been teammates with Max at Toro Rosso. He's familiar, just like Ricciardo, with the Red Bull setup, and that also gives him a race winning, a championship contender car right from the outset. I'm not saying Sainz may be a match for Verstappen, he may beat Verstappen, no. He will have to perform out of his skin to do that, but that's a left field option Red Bull may look to explore if Sainz doesn't want to stay at Ferrari. So that's about Red Bull. Many options, many possibilities, and Sergio Perez has to look over his shoulder because Red Bull can only be so patient with his inconsistency. Now let's talk about AlphaTauri. Obviously, whatever they do will impact Red Bull and vice versa. Now Ricciardo and Tsunoda are in direct competition for Checo's seat, but who replaces them if either of them get that seat? There is Liam Lawson, who impressed last year immensely. I would say Lawson should have got that seat this year because he's the kind of driver one would want to see in F1. So it's very sad that Lawson is off the grid this year, but he's a strong contender if either of Ricciardo or Tsunoda move up to Red Bull. And besides him, there are F2 drivers like Ayumu Iwasa and Dennis Hauger. But AlphaTauri have clarified that they don't want to be that junior team to Red Bull who breeds their junior drivers, grooms them, and then they get them ready for the main team. So ideally, they would want someone like Lawson in there besides one of Ricciardo or Tsunoda. Most probably, it will be Tsunoda again because he's still young to move to Red Bull. He has to gain a lot of experience. And against Max Verstappen, Tsunoda stands little chance. Red Bull would want the experience of Daniel Ricciardo. So for AlphaTauri, Tsunoda and Lawson could be the driver lineup for 25, with Ricciardo moving to Red Bull. Now let's talk about a settled team, Mercedes. They have Lewis Hamilton and George Russell tied up till the end of 2025. That does not mean there may not be any changes, but it is highly unlikely either of those drivers choose to leave Mercedes or Hamilton decides to retire suddenly. That is the only curveball Mercedes could face. Hamilton suddenly raising his hand saying, I am done. That's unlikely to happen. They mostly just need a car. They have their driver lineup settled for the next 2 or 3 years minimum. They just need a car to fight for wins and championships, and they could be right at the front. Of course, unless George Russell thinks at the end of 25, oh, you know what, this team is looking very exciting. I want to go there. So unless George Russell pulls off a shock move, it's highly unlikely Mercedes see any sort of changes in the next 2 years and for 26. And who's got it sorted beside Mercedes is McLaren. They don't have to worry about their current drivers. Both Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri have signed for the long term. Norris till the end of 25, Oscar Piastri till the end of 26. So Piastri at this moment has a longer contract than Lando Norris. So Zach Brown is not going to worry about who he wants to sign. Ideally, they would want to renew Norris's contract beyond 25, which may happen this season, and he's the big hot property on the market. So Zach Brown and McLaren don't want to lose Norris under any circumstances. The kind of performances he showed last year after McLaren got their car sorted. If Norris comes on the driver market that he doesn't want to stay at McLaren, people are going to pounce on him. Red Bull, Ferrari, Mercedes, anybody who's got an available seat, they would want to take someone like Lando Norris. Why not? As I mentioned, he's got no exit clause in his current contract. Ideally, he would want to have that when he renews his contract next time around. There have been these Red Bull rumors that Red Bull would want Lando besides Max. But as I mentioned earlier, they will have to break the bank for him if there is no exit clause in his contract. The question here is, will Norris really consider moving away from McLaren? That's the big question here. That's the big doubt anyone would have. With McLaren doing so well, they are performing well, they have improved a lot, the technical structure is sorted. So if they keep developing well, why would Norris want to move? Ideally, he's settled in that team, so he would not want to go against Max Verstappen at Red Bull and get to know a different team. It just does not make sense that Norris would want to move away from McLaren. unless of course McLaren struggle and don't show the results that they are expecting to. Norris ideally wants to fight for the championship in the next 2 seasons, or at least at the start of 26. Lando Norris wants to be a championship contender. So unless that kind of a situation occurs, like Lewis Hamilton had back in the day, where he was forced to switch to Mercedes because McLaren was just not delivering on its promises, it's highly unlikely that Norris goes to any other team besides McLaren. And of course, Piastri is their future. He's a world championship material and they would not want to lose him. That's why they have signed him till the end of 26. And he's going to stay there. He's going to stay there for a long time. Now let's talk about the meat of things at Ferrari. Carlos Sainz and Charles Leclerc both have their contracts expiring at the end of the season. About Leclerc, he's coming at the end of his 5-year deal, about to sign another 5-year deal. Should he ideally do that? I would think he would want to just stick out for 2-3 years till the end of 26, 27, rather than going in impulsively for that mega deal once again. Because if Ferrari falters again, which in popular culture and by past record is highly likely, so Leclerc would want to keep his options open rather than just tying himself up at Ferrari saying, yeah, I want to just win at Ferrari, nowhere else. That's the reason, Carlos Sainz has been connected and rumored to these other teams like Aston Martin, Sauber, Audi, and Leclerc. There are no options. Basically, people are saying that Leclerc stays at Ferrari and there is nowhere else that Leclerc could go. That he wants to stay at Ferrari, he's made clear, which is fine. But that's the reason, Carlos Sainz has kept his options open, saying, well, that if Ferrari is not possible, if they don't give him a long-term deal, which he wants, then yeah, there are possibilities outside of the Scuderia also. So Leclerc does not have anywhere else to go, but Sainz does. He's been connected to many other teams. Sauber, there is the Audi connection with his father driving for Audi. So he may sign up for Sauber for 25 and look out for that Audi project. Then there is the Aston Martin possibility. Could we see an all-Spanish lineup at Aston if they decide to sack Lance Stroll? And there is a possibility, I feel, that Red Bull may want to sign up Carlos Sainz if Ferrari doesn't. It's sort of a left field call to see Red Bull taking up Sainz. But yeah, we have seen crazier moves happen. So why not if Sainz looks at Red Bull saying, yeah, we have a championship winning car at Red Bull. It's fine if Ferrari doesn't give me that long-term deal. I can fight for a championship, I can fight for race wins in Red Bull, which is a much better reliable car than Ferrari has right now. The problem Sainz is having at Ferrari is they are not giving him a long-term deal. As I mentioned earlier, it's a 1 + 1 year deal with an option for the second year or just a 1-year deal. And Carlos has been clear he's done with the 1-year extensions, which makes sense at his age, 29, 30. He'll be entering his peak form period in the 30s, so he needs stability at this point of time. And that stability obviously comes up with a long-term contract. So what happens if Sainz actually leaves Ferrari? They don't retain him. There have been rumors, there have been reports that Ferrari has approached Alex Albon. The kind of form he's shown, he deserves to be in a top car for sure. And Albon has had his history with Red Bull. But Albon to Ferrari may make sense if Albon is ready mentally and psychologically to be in a top team again. Because Ferrari is again a sort of a pressure cooker for Albon. There will be a lot of expectations. At Williams, the environment is much more subtle for him. He thrives at that environment with little expectations from him. A backmarker car, they don't expect to fight for podiums, which is the complete opposite of the environment he experienced at Red Bull. So Alex Albon coming to Ferrari is a double-edged sword. Would he want to sign up for that pressure cooker? Maybe. But ideally from Ferrari's perspective, they should look at stability and retain Carlos Sainz and Charles Leclerc both. Like Mercedes and McLaren have sealed their driver lineups. Sainz and Leclerc have worked well as teammates. So ideally, Ferrari should look to just retain both of them and avoid any sort of changes over the next 2 seasons. So to continue talking about Alex Albon and Williams, the situation over there is clear that Alex Albon wants to be in a top team car. with the kind of form he is in. And Williams is a project that is at least 8 to 10 years away from winning races and championships. One cannot fathom Williams fighting for podiums even by 2026. So even if Albon decides to stay there till 26 or 27, would he get a car that can fight for podiums? Does not seem so. So that's the reason he's seeking for that big team like Ferrari or Mercedes or Red Bull. Realistically, he has two options. Either the unlikely Red Bull return. Even Red Bull would not want to get back Albon, where they have tried and tested him and he's faltered badly against Max. So Red Bull may not want to get that buyback clause on Alex Albon. So Ferrari remains his most realistic opportunity. A new team, a bigger challenge for him. There will be a lot of expectations. There will be a lot of eyeballs on him if he actually decides to sign at Ferrari. He's like the second hottest property on the driver market this season besides Lando Norris. And that's the reason, because Lando Norris has got a contract till the end of 25. So that sort of makes Alex Albon a top player besides Carlos Sainz, because he's up for renewal for the next season. So being in the form of his life, Ferrari being his option, this is sort of a good moment for Alex Albon. It's a good headache to have. Now from the Red Bull possibility, is it possible that they would take Albon ahead of Ricciardo and Perez? And even from Alex's perspective, would he want to return to Red Bull where he has suffered so much? So Albon remains an open possibility of where he could go. Re-signing at Williams for a couple of years seems like a logical possibility for Albon. And for Logan Sargent, there are a lot of good F2 drivers. Theo Pourchaire hasn't got a seat this year. And there is Andrea Kimi Antonelli, the Mercedes junior driver. He's going to drive in Formula 2 this season. And if he wins the championship or even does well, finish second or third, Antonelli could be Logan Sargent's replacement. So Williams do not have to worry about Logan Sargent. They really have to worry about Alex Albon. Now what about Aston Martin? Fernando Alonso is showing no signs of retirement. He's most likely to extend his current contract, which runs out at the end of this year, but he's got an option for 2025. So he'll likely take that. And beyond that, too, there are possibilities that Aston would offer him another long-term contract beyond 2026. So Alonso and Aston seem like a very good fit. And it doesn't seem like he's going to move away anywhere else unless Red Bull offer him a mega deal saying, come fight for the championship besides Max Verstappen at Red Bull. Unless that sort of bonkers deal happens, Alonso is not moving away from Aston Martin. That's for sure. The question Aston Martin has to answer, whether they want to retain Lance Stroll or not. Now technically he's on a rolling contract, which means he gets a renewal every season. And that's basically a contract till eternity. Till his death, he's going to drive for Aston Martin. So it becomes an odd case to predict what happens to Lance Stroll. Despite his inconsistent performance, the team is most likely going to retain him, but he's costing them points in the Constructors' Championship. From a performance perspective, if Aston Martin wants to win championships, they would want a better driver than Lance Stroll, or they would ideally want Lance Stroll to perform better and close up that gap to Fernando Alonso. That's the reason there are all these possibilities about Carlos Sainz and even, Lance Stroll. What does happen to him? Aston Martin have a hypercar program now in the World Endurance Championship. So could Lawrence Stroll say, alright, Lance is going to lead a hypercar team in the Endurance Championship? That could be a possibility. And a strategic way to move away Lance from F1 and get a better driver like Carlos Sainz or Alex Albon or whoever they want. It's highly unlikely that Lawrence Stroll sacks his own son from his F1 team. But if Aston Martin say to him, you know what, your son is doing good, but we want a better driver to match up to Alonso's level and help us in the Constructors' Championship, then Lawrence Stroll might think practically saying, alright, let's do one for the team. Lance Stroll has got his chance over the past few years. If he's not performing well, he has to take that harsh call. So it's still an odd case to predict. Alonso feels confident to retain himself, to stay at Aston Martin. Lance Stroll ideally would stay and want to improve. So whatever Aston Martin does will have an impact on the market. It will open up a good midfield seat that can provide a race-winning car in the future. And drivers like Carlos Sainz, even Alex Albon may have that eye on that Aston Martin seat of Lance Stroll most probably, or if Fernando Alonso decides to retire in the next 2 seasons. But Alonso and Stroll are most likely poised to stay there at Aston Martin. So whatever happens with their driver lineup, if any changes happen, it will be a surprise for everybody. Now let's talk about Alpine. Very anonymous team. Last year they finished 6th. From a performance perspective, they are in no man's land. And last year they finished 6th. Well ahead of Sauber, Haas, AlphaTauri, Williams, but well below McLaren and Aston Martin. And can we believe it? McLaren were at the bottom of the table when the season started, and they leapfrogged Alpine to claim 4th in the standings. And from a driver perspective, that's their biggest problem. Gasly and Ocon, 2 race winners, 2 French drivers, they would want to retain both of them. Both of their contracts run out at the end of the season, but would they want to stay there? With the kind of performance trajectory Alpine has shown, especially Esteban Ocon, who signed that long-term deal in 2021, would he want to say, alright, I've had my run with Alpine, now it's time to look at some fresher pastures. So Ocon might be reconsidering. Gasly just 1 year at Alpine, so he may not look as seriously to move away from Alpine. But if that rivalry sparks up this season, it is very possible that either of those drivers, most likely Ocon, moves away. But where will any of them go? Both of them are good enough drivers, they are race winners, but are they good enough for a top team? Honestly, it's difficult to say. It's very difficult to say from what we know from the history. Pierre Gasly struggled badly at Red Bull. He has been in a top team. Then he came back to AlphaTauri, performed well in the midfield. Same ways for Ocon. He was looking good at Racing Point. There was a point he could have driven for Mercedes, then spent the year out, and then has come to Renault and Alpine. Has thrived well in that environment. But both these drivers are good midfield drivers. But can they make a case for being in a top team? Honestly not. And they would obviously not want to take a step down unless it's a move to Sauber and Audi. There have been reports that Audi may be considering to bring in Ocon, if not Carlos Sainz. But from Alpine's perspective, ideally, they should retain both Gasly and Ocon, just like Ferrari should retain Sainz and Leclerc. And their big issue is their car performance. So Gasly and Ocon wanting to get a better car may lead them away from Alpine in the next 2 seasons. Maybe next season, maybe in 26. So Alpine needs to sort that performance issue out if they want to retain Gasly and Ocon. And just in case one of them leaves, what are the options for Alpine? There is of course Nico Hülkenberg, a driver, an experienced driver like him. He's struggling at Haas in a backmarker team. So he would want to look at that move up. Even if he's in his late 30s, why not? And Sergio Perez would look at Alpine as sort of a soft landing zone if Red Bull decide to replace him. There's of course Valtteri Bottas if Sauber doesn't renew him beyond this season and they bring in Carlos Sainz or somebody else. Or there can be some other F2 driver that Alpine may look at. But most likely Gasly and Ocon will stay. If there are no tensions between them, they can live under the same roof, then why not? Most likely they will stay. We're going to talk about Sauber and Audi because they've got many of these rumored drivers and many of these choices that may shake up the driver market, and they are going to be a major player in the next 2 years driver market because they are looking from that future perspective who they want for the long term. Currently they have got Valtteri Bottas and Zhou Guanyu who are good drivers, but have they got any future at that team? Bottas has clearly expressed he would want to stay at Audi, and someone of his experience, a race winner, an experienced driver in a top team previously, so Audi would want to take him up. But even if they drop him before that, Bottas would not mind. He's like a Kimi Raikkonen kind of figure right now. Finnish driver, doesn't really care of the narratives around him. So even if they drop him, he's got his business ventures. He would go and sell coffee and gin and do swimming and cycling in Australia. Now talking about Joe Guan Yu, he's also a good driver. He's shown decent performance potential in the past 2 years. Now Theo Pourchaire winning the F2 championship last year. He's been in the wings for a long time for Sauber, and they want to give Theo Pourchaire that seat sooner or later. So while Carlos Sainz is a possibility that Audi might want to sign him up, there is Theo Pourchaire, a younger driver who Audi may look at saying, alright, this guy is here to stick out, and they may look at Pourchaire as that Oscar Piastri kind of figure who stays at the team for a long term to fight for the world championship, fight for race wins. Now from Sainz's perspective, will he want to take that long-term Audi project? Because Audi is not going to be competitive right out of the gate. They will struggle for a couple of years in the midfield before becoming a race winning or a championship winning team. And by the time 26 rolls around, Sainz will be 31, 32. So add a couple more years to that and Sainz becomes 34, 35. Will he be in his peak form by then to challenge for the championship, win races? And even realistically, will he want to wait till then? Which is why extending at Ferrari for the long term makes more sense for him right now, rather than going to Sauber, Audi and building it up to become a race winning and championship winning outfit. So that's what Sainz would want to reassess right now, whether to take that gamble to go to Sauber, Audi, which is currently a step down from Ferrari. So Carlos Sainz just might be wary of those things. Now Audi want a German driver too maybe, so Mick Schumacher might be in the hunt there. There is a possibility of Sebastian Vettel coming back, but again the same argument that applied for Sainz applies for Vettel too. He'll be 39-40 when Audi comes, so he doesn't want to invest in another long-term project just to come back from retirement and have a shot at that 5th world title. That's what Sebastian Vettel would want. So many things can happen at Audi. Carlos Sainz, Esteban Ocon, Sebastian Vettel, Mick Schumacher, Theo Pourchaire, Valtteri Bottas, they are going to be very active in the next 2 seasons, looking out for drivers and nailing down the optimal driver lineup when Audi comes in. Now the last team on the grid, Haas F1. Gunther Steiner sacked and exited. Now who would want to drive for Haas in such a volatile environment? Steiner was the backbone of that team, and now he's gone. They have Hülkenberg and Magnussen, two good experienced drivers, but from a future perspective, performance-wise, they are nowhere to be seen. There is no trajectory, no plan of moving ahead like other teams have. Aston Martin, McLaren, they had their plans, they have executed it, and they're now on their way to challenge at the front. But that's nowhere to be seen with Haas. They have got two good drivers in Hülkenberg and Magnussen right now. They have 1-year deals. Both their contracts expired at the end of this season. Most likely they would want to renew their contracts with so much restructuring going on. But would they look at some younger driver like Ollie Behrman? He's part of the Ferrari Driver Academy, driving in Formula 2 this season. That will be second season, so there's a possibility he may be in hunt for the championship. So will Ferrari ask Haas to give Ollie Behrman a seat for next season if Haas decides to let go either of Hülkenberg or Magnussen? But still, Haas is a very anonymous team right now, like Alpine, a very anonymous lineup. Performance-wise, they are nowhere. They are going to be a team that is going to pick up the scraps. Whoever is left, whoever is out of a seat, they would want to approach that driver and take him in if they want to sack either Magnussen or Hülkenberg, or sign a Ferrari junior like Ollie Behrman. At this stage, they seem to have went back to their Grosjean Magnussen days, with now Hülkenberg taking Grosjean's place. Most probably Haas are going to retain Hülkenberg and Magnussen on another 1-year deal. So yeah, that's how the 10 teams stack up ahead of the silly season this year. 2024-25 are going to be very active in terms of driver contracts. People will renew their contracts. They will want to look out for options beside their current teams. And one big move like Carlos Sainz moving away from Ferrari could shake up the entire market. It could have a domino effect as it always has. All those pieces start falling into place because of just one big move. It will most likely be Carlos Sainz that may make that big move. And of course, the Red Bull seat is going to be a key player. It's one of the most coveted seats besides Max Verstappen, the best car on the grid. Dan Ricciardo certainly is looking for the fairy tale ending. Sergio Perez for saving his F1 career literally. But whatever happens, it's going to add a lot of excitement to the driver market, irrespective of how boring or dominating the championship may be, with Max Verstappen winning another one. But yeah, that's how this season looks out to be. The silly season, the driver market, could really be a huge talking point throughout the year. So, besides the driver market chatter, what else is happening in F1? Madrid has been announced as the host of the Spanish Grand Prix from 2026, and suddenly people have started liking Barcelona, which I really don't understand because 6 months earlier they were hating it despite the final chicane being removed and the circuit homologated to make a better final corner. It gave decent racing, but still people did not like the race very much. They still said that overall the track is very monotonous and lacks character. It's a very good testing track, which is what I feel. Does it give great racing? The clear answer is no. That's been the case for several years. Overtaking is an issue on that track. So that Madrid versus Barcelona debate that's raging on Twitter right now does not make much sense. Just because Madrid is a street circuit does not necessarily mean it will be bad. Miami is a similar semi-street circuit, which was bad. But besides Miami, Las Vegas, Jeddah, Baku, all these street circuits that have been introduced in the past few years, they have provided good racing. Yes, Baku last year was a bit of a dull race, and in general, Baku provides the most exciting races in F1. Everyone criticized Las Vegas to the core, and look how that turned out to be. It was one of the most exciting races of the entire season last year. So I feel again people are criticizing Madrid prematurely like they did for Las Vegas. And it doesn't look as bad from the layout. Well, the layout shape looks bad, but if you look at the particular corners, it has those 90-degree corners that we have in Las Vegas and Baku. It has some of the fast flowing sections that Jeddah has, and it also has the Turkey Turnate type of corner. So yes, the width of the street circuit could be the question, but if the track is wide enough and it provides good overtaking opportunities, sign me up, because we have seen great street circuits provide some awesome racing in the past few years. So just because Madrid is a street circuit does not necessarily mean it is going to be bad. And 6 months ago, Barcelona wasn't a very highly liked track. So there's little to go against Madrid so early before even seeing a race on it. So let's see what happens when F1 races in Madrid in 26. Does that mean Barcelona drops off the calendar? That would most likely be its fate. And as I said earlier, it's more of a testing track than a race track. Last year they dropped Paul Ricard and no one really missed Paul Ricard. The French Grand Prix is gone. We should have a French Grand Prix, but Paul Ricard is not the track for it. It provided very dull, monotonous racing. There were multiple layouts. There's no character to it. Same goes for Barcelona. So if Madrid provides much better, exciting racing, then yes, it seems fine that F1 drops Barcelona and maybe just uses it for pre-season testing. So those will be my thoughts on the Madrid street circuit and the Spanish Grand Prix moving there in 2026. And as the car launches begin, I'll be bringing team previews too. I'll also do a season preview after pre-season testing gets over, just ahead of the first race weekend in Bahrain. So a lot of content coming up on the podcast as we gear up for the 2024 season. So stay tuned till then.